You are listening to the Good Girl Podcast. I am CAMEO King of the Good Girl Podcast, where we destruct good femininity. What I define as good femininity is these ideas of what you have to do, what you have to be in order to be successful. And that's wrapped up in the idea of a good woman. What you wear, how you talk, how you engage with the opposite sex. If you engage with the opposite sex, if you want to be a mother, all these things that I really believe can essentially be damaging to the self-actualization of women, especially if we do not fit that role, or if we decide to change from that role of a mother, of a wife, or if we decide to show up differently. So every day, well, maybe every day, actually every week, every Wednesday on the Good Girl Podcast, we have people on with confessions of them being good girls and how they broke out of that. And so our confession box is always open. You can submit one anonymously, or again, you can give us your name, your location, your age, your DNA, all that other good stuff. And we can have a good conversation right here on the Good Girl Podcast. But today is going to be a little different. Look, I'm up here tearing stuff up. I don't know if y'all heard that. I hit something with my arm, but today is going to be a little bit different because I had the amazing opportunity. Did you click this when you saw the title? Yes, y'all. I was invited to be on the Red Table Talk. So if you're watching this, you'll see I have on a red sweatshirt and it says the red, my mic in the way. The Red Table Talk. And so I'm going to share about my experience. I'm going to share what show it was. I don't know if y'all saw me. I don't know if y'all heard me. Wink, wink. And everything else that was good about it. But for this conversation, because I can't have this conversation by myself. I can't. I'm going to bring my homegirl in. Y'all know who she is. I'm going to bring my homegirl in. Reka, hey. What up? Reka Robinson, what up?
That's me. Y'all, my friend was on Red Table Talk. Y'all, did y'all see her? She was on Red Table Talk. I was screaming. I see her face. So this is going to be a fun conversation because I have so many questions. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's exciting to have this conversation. And if you don't know Reka, she has her own podcast, the Single You podcast. She is also a coach helping women navigate becoming their best selves. And so excited to have Reka on, excited to have your perspective. So I was on the Red Table Talk,
You was on Jada Pinkett's show.
I was. And so the show,
and just real quick, this is a big deal just because despite, the entanglements and, how I guess we've stopped holding Will and Jada on a pedestal. We grew up with Jada. Come on. We grew up with Jada.
Yes.
It's so crazy that you were actually on a platform that she created. So I'm so excited for you. And yeah, let's get into it.
And I'm glad you pointed that out. But when we talk about the phases of seeing Jada from a different world to, she was on Fresh Prince. Was she on Fresh Prince?
I think she was one episode, but she was supposed to, she auditioned to be his girlfriend, but then Nia Long ended up getting it because they said Jada was too short. But I'm like, it's real.
Or something. Yeah. Because that's how they kind of first interacted. That's how they first met.
Yep. They first met.
Set It Off. That's one of my favorite movies.
I mean, that's my favorite role of hers, right? That. I think that would be my favorite when I think of all of the movies Jada has been in and what I know her and what's cemented in my memory of being a 90s kid. That's the movie. So
yeah, so I love her for that, from Baltimore. Just being her full self, I believe. And so the show that I was invited to be on, it was entitled "How to Find and Keep a Healthy Relationship." And so I think it was one of their larger table talks they had. Obviously, Jada, Gam, and Willow, and then they also had 3 relationship experts from around the table. But just so y'all know, I'm not lying. I want to show y'all the clip so you can see my face. See my face in the building. So here we go.
I know. St. Matthew.
Yeah, man, this is a hell of a table. But we got to share, y'all. So we have a whole wall of single women joining us with burning questions about the complicated world of relationships.
Some of them have even taken their search for a partner to the next level, appearing on popular dating shows and hoping to find love.
So let's say hello to all the single ladies. Hey!
What's up? What's going on?
First up is to
Look at you with that
Did y'all see
green. Looking cute.
It was real quick. The bottom left hand corner, left hand, and I was shown a couple other times, and essentially, so we can get to the conversation. They invited women on. I think very much who has some connection to other women in what they do. Right? You guys know I run a nonprofit. You guys know the work I do here on the Good Girl podcast. So having, I'll say, like my ear to the streets. I think I would have been a good person to ask questions about dating and dating experiences. Unfortunately, I didn't necessarily get to ask a question. Not necessarily. I did not get to ask a question, right? You saw that they had women on who had been exposed on a regular basis on a national level on shows. That's not my story right now. And I'm okay with that. But nonetheless, I think the conversation was great. I think that it really gave some insightful perspectives on dating. And so that's what we're going to talk about here. And I'm also going to share what it felt like behind the scenes. And also me kind of just like, oh, I want to get in. I want to hop in. I want to say this. I want to say that. But really just being able to see, like all three of them, including Cherie, just kind of in their element, just relaxing and existing and being and putting on a show like this. So Reka, I know you had a chance to look at the show. Yep. What were your first thoughts?
Right. It was like, oh, there my girl. Okay, that's the first thought. Okay. And then after that, I was like, this is a really good conversation and really right on time. And all of the men on that panel, I actually listened to, or have. I may not, every day I may not be listening to them, but I definitely knew who Devon Franklin was, obviously. And I was really happy that he was honest about I'm still on this panel and I'm still talking about relationships, even though, I had a divorce. And I love how they brought up that shouldn't be categorized as a failure. So I love that piece. And I know who Matthew Hussey is. I think he's the first, honestly, relationship coach I ever heard of, because he's done a lot of radio guest spots on other radio shows. And obviously, I come from radio. And this was like, I want to say early 2000s. He's been on for 10 years. Yeah. So I've known of him, and then Stephan Speaks, and then the other, I don't want to call him the white boy, but the other white boy. I listen to his podcast.
With the Lewis House.
Yeah, there we go. Lewis, or whatever his name is. I'm like, what the white boy name? Like, what's the name? He's a cute little white boy, but hey, I've listened to his podcast before. So I was just really excited. It was a great panel, and I see why they picked those men for sure.
And just being transparent, like as the conversation began, my heart sunk a little bit, if I'm honest, because I think I am tired of conversations about dating led solely by men and not necessarily having experts that are women to share their perspective. But then I kind of have to check myself. Like, that's why Jada is here. That's why Gam is here. That's why Willow is here. That's why Cherie is here, to provide that balance in that context. But for the most part, the men very much led the conversation and led the idea of being experts, even though I still push back on that, because I think, I don't know if we need any more advice. We need, like I heard a woman say, we don't need no more advice. Give us some connections. Give us some introductions. Like,
where? So is it the Home Depot? Because that's where Sheree. So do I need to go to the Home Depot and be like, I need a plan? Where am I? And just stand around for an hour? Like, where do we go? Cameo. Okay. I've done a lot of healing. I'm red tea. So.
Y'all can't see me shaking my head if you're listening, but I'm like, yeah. Look, man, here are going all over the place. Yes. Yeah. But it was a great experience. So I'm ready to share. And so I did. So they told us don't tell anybody. But how can you not tell nobody?
Yeah. Well, wait. Can I start my questions? Because I want to start from the beginning.
You can start your questions. Go.
Okay. Go. I want to know, because it's not, if I remember correctly, when you said that this was happening, I don't think that you auditioned for something. Did they reach out to you personally?
No, so they did. And so I have a friend that actually works in production. She works on a lot of different shows. Okay. And she just randomly asked me, she was like, do you want to be, she was like, it's just going to be a quick video. on this dating show. And she had told me, like, I knew she had done some work on the Red Table Talk. And I know like they have seasons and all this other stuff. And I knew she was working on another show or something was going on. So I didn't think anything about it. And she's like, because I know your background and, you know, I want to hand your name off, basically. I said, sure. And she was like, okay, well, just send a video about who you are and all this other stuff. And I'm thinking that's the video that they're going to use. And like, I literally forget about it. And then I get a call from her. She was like, Cameo, they're trying to get in touch with you. I said, oh, okay. I didn't get an email. But then I checked my other email address. Girl, it says from the Red Table Talk. And I call her. I said, girl.
Yeah.
Tell me. And she was like, oh, Cameo, it's just a video. I said, not according to this. I said, I had a conversation with the producer. They asked me a lot of questions because I really think she didn't think it was going to get as far as it did. And if it did, it was literally just going to be that little quick, like 30, 15-second video or whatever that they may use. And Reka, I'm sure you know, in production, you have so much footage. And a lot of times, it doesn't make it to cutting room floor. And so I like literally forgot it. But then after I talked to the producer and they were like, oh yeah, we're going to send you this kit. Can I have your address? I'm like, really? Like what? And got this kit probably about the size of my body. Delivered.
No way.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's how it, cool. That's how it came about. And it was pretty cool. Like they set Reka, like it was so much like sitting, positioning, lighting, what's in your background. So even if I don't know if you guys can see, but I have a picture back there. Like I had to take that down because they were like, no, it's not clear. Like we didn't clear it. Yeah.
Wow. So it was a real production for them. Like this is a real show. And you do need clearance because somebody in that picture could be like, I did not allow this picture to be on, and they could sue and all of that. So this is a real deal. So when they tell you, okay, you know, whatever they said in the email, what are you thinking at this moment? Are you thinking like, oh, okay, so they only want me to ask this panel a question? Did you know who the panel was? Did you think it was going to be a conversation between you, Jada, Gam, and Willow? Or like, what are you thinking at this moment?
So no, they didn't tell us who was on the panel. The producer, I think when I talked to her, because I think I talked to maybe two or three producers, but I think they may have said their names in conversation, but definitely not in email. But I was simply thinking that I would ask a question or two or three, because they said have a couple questions prepared to ask. And we went over the questions and to make sure that they were somewhat in line, I guess, with the vision of the show, or to make sure that they were entertaining, because there's an entertaining component to it too. And also that they were distinctive from the other guests or the other women that were asking the questions. And so, you know, I'm still trying to hold back, like, your question may not make it on, you know, but when they talk to you in so much detail about the question that you're asking, right? You're like, oh no, like you're really going to ask the question. And then they even they were like, no, you're used to this. You ask questions all the time on your podcast. I said, you listen to my podcast.
What episode did you listen to, girl? Let's talk about it. Like, yes. Okay. Yes.
So I was super excited, but at the same time, trying to manage my expectations, right? Because like you just know, like you know this, you know stuff happens, or the show maybe maybe they decide not to air the show at all. You just don't know. So that's kind of where my head was, like in between excitement and trying to balance.
Yeah, and being that this is like our career and we've been in this space since college, basically, we know like things get cut all the time. So I definitely understand the trying to like manage it, but also being excited, but wait, it cannot have it, or maybe it will, or, you know? And so I'm sure you told your family, like, did they say, is it like a reality show where they're like, okay, we already filmed it, but it's not airing for 6 months, so you can't say nothing until it's over? Did they tell you that or not? And then did you end up telling your family?
So basically I could have signed my soul away because, you know, you have to sign paperwork. And I'm sure the paperwork said, shut up, don't tell nobody nothing. And so I did, but I told my family. But I didn't. I know.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell them until the day we were recording, right? Because also in my mind, I'm just like, you just don't know. You don't know. And I even told them, like, I may not be able, I may not even get on there, but this is what I'm doing right now. I didn't give them the details or anything like that. I'm like, yo, I'm on a red table talk. And they were like, what? Mind you, this is in a family text group. And some of them are like, what is a red table talk?
What does that mean?
Oh my, listen.
Yeah.
Listen. So I did tell them. So they were really excited. When is it going to air? I don't know anything. That's all I know is that I'm currently recording and I see Jada and I see like Live and Willow and Gam. So yeah.
So we all know that CAMEO cannot be on a reality show like Love is Blind or The Bachelorette or something. Listen, you record and then 6 months later you're allowed to say something like that ain't gonna work for you.
They would have sued every ounce of me.
Mm-hmm. So you get to the day that you're recording. Walk us through that. What happens? Yeah, and how are you feeling being in the cracks? You were on the wall of single women, is what they call it, or something like that.
That's what they called it. So it was a lot of other women in there. Obviously, a lot of them were from reality shows and have like a ridiculously huge following and had different experiences, especially that the public had already consumed, like whether it's been divorced, whether it's been, publicly being married and it not working out for you. And so we were all kind of sitting in a room together before the show started. And it was just like some of us were just kind of sitting in there just waiting because we didn't know what to expect. But I also think you could tell the other women who either had done this before or I kind of want to say didn't care as much. And that isn't like a bad thing. I was super excited, right, to be a part of this. But I think because some of the other women had already lived in this space consistently, it just wasn't a big deal to them. And so they were like, oh, so hey, where's everybody from? And that's kind of what it was. And so we were behind like the scenes for a while and just chatting it up. And then all of a sudden you kind of hear the producers, like they're texting you too. So they're literally texting you on your phone.
Oh,
and
wow.
They're like, okay, they're like, okay, we're going to get ready. Give us about 5 minutes, give us about 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, we're about to, and you're getting these texts constantly in a group text and then in a single, one-on-one with one of many producers. And so it's just exciting, right? I got flushed. I was hot. Even though I was cute because I got my makeup done, but I was
you was so cute. Yep. He was prepared. Okay.
I was. And then the show started. The show started and a lot of what was aired. And so wow, that show may have been, I think maybe 45 minutes, 35 minutes. The actual conversation was probably like 4 hours. Yes.
I'm sorry, 4 hours you're sitting on this panel looking at Jada Pinkett in this room. Right. 4 hours. Was you hungry?
Girl, I was. Yeah. I had some chicken in the oven. Girl, 4 hours. And they did mention that it was a longer show, like probably one of their longest shows that they ever had. And with it being probably one of the largest tables, I can understand why it was so long. Like you have, was it 6 people or 8 people at the table? And then you have this wall of women, each with a question. And sometimes the questions being, even though they told us to keep it short, but even though some of the questions being 5 minutes long or explaining your life story and then asking the question. So I see how it got to, I was probably about to pass out though, because I was hot and hungry. And
right. And so at this time, are they stopping and starting? Because when you like film a movie, there's cut, stop. Oh, so this is like 4 hours of consistent talking.
Like straight through. Right. I'm going to say 3.5 hours. I don't say 4, but it was long. It wasn't like an hour, it wasn't like 2. Right. It was a 3.5 hour, 4 hour. So it was like a straight through conversation. And I'm sure it was good for them because even I forget who it was. One of them was like, hey, I got a flight to catch. Like during the conversation, like I only have like maybe 5 or 10 more minutes or something like that. But it was a straight through conversation. So kudos to the editors of that of that podcast.
Because it ended up being only like 48 minutes or something. Yeah. So to cut that down. Dang, but I want to hear the whole. I'm somebody who's like, no, I want to know what y'all talked about for 4 hours. Like, I want to know. So dang, I wish that it was longer.
Yeah, I think that they did an awesome job. Let's be clear of summarizing what happened in those 3.5, 4 hours. And I was so surprised. Yeah, I was so surprised that because you don't remember everything from a 4 hour conversation, but I think they summed it up. Like they did editors like amazing job.
Well, good. Okay, so we didn't miss the meat of it, so that's good because I definitely took some notes and I do want to get to like what you maybe gleaned from the conversation or maybe didn't like or what have you. But before we do that, I do want to say, so unfortunately they did not get to your question, and so in that process of it being that long, was there a moment that you realized like, oh, I'm probably not gonna get to go, or were you still holding out hope? And then when you didn't get to go, what was that like?
So I held out hope to the very end because I said, ain't no way. I done got my makeup done. Yeah. All the timing was perfect. Even prior to this, I felt like the Holy Spirit, I think I was trying to schedule something that day. And I really felt like, don't schedule anything that day. And then when it happened, I was like, oh, this is why. So everything lined up. It just lined up. I said, this makes total sense. And then I'm also I felt like my emotions were somewhat in check in the event that I still don't, make it past the cutting room floor. No, I held out hope literally until they were like, all right, power down your computer. I did because they kept going to different people. And even with me like talking to the producer, like texting, because they're like, text us if you have a question, if you want to interject. And so just thinking that the show could go any way. So I'm texting. She's like, oh, that's a good question. We're going to come to you. And so I'm like, oh, they're about to come to me. Like, you get excited. Yeah. You get excited. I'm like, oh, this wasn't even the question I was going to ask, but it came to mind based on what was happening. And, that's kind of how it was. But I get, like, at the same time, like, I get production. Like I
100%. You go with the flow of the show. You go with the flow of the show. As you're watching it in real time, being a producer is hard because you do got to be like, oh, we need to go to this one because it will make sense because he said that and da 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 da. So it is really hard. So they probably did have good intention of like, that is a good question. Let's get to it. But then they brought up a different point. So they're like, oh, so then let's go to this question. So I get it. So then they don't get to you. Does the producer, since they have been in charge, did they say something, or was it just like, okay, we're done, guys, bye, and then you never heard from them again?
No. Bye.
Right. Get off. We done. Jada gotta go.
Right. No, I think it was. No, I don't think. No, I can't remember exactly what it was. I think they did thank us for our time. And they did say we wish we could have gotten to everyone. They said they also asked us though, would we be interested in doing a follow-up show or whatever? And I said, oh yeah, I'd be I was so like my feelings was not a little bit hurt. It was a lot bit hurt at that time. Like if I'm honest, like I was like, because I really tried to manage my emotions all the way up to the end. And then it's the idea, not that you just didn't get the opportunity to speak, but like there's no possible chance that your question or your voice, what you do, like my voice is what I do, would enter this space. And so I think that was more so like a personal thing for me. And I shared that with you. I was like,
you did, I was just about to say so, and I didn't know if you want me to say it or not. But yeah, the message you sent me, you were so hurt. But it is because I 100% get it. But I think I told you something along the lines of like, you're allowed to be upset. Like, this was a big deal. Like, feel those emotions. We are human. We are emotional human beings, especially being women. And when you get your hopes up, even though you're trying not to, you still got it's because why wouldn't you? Like, that is a big deal, right? Like, this is Jada, and my voice could be heard on this huge platform, which, I know you were thinking about what that could do for you in the Good Girl podcast, and your branding. So I 100% got it and understood it. And it's like, feel your feelings. That's okay. It is 100% okay. You are valid in how you felt about the situation.
Yeah. So yeah, I was a little bit hurt. And then it's so funny when I told my family that I didn't get to ask the question. So I told them in a group, and my aunt, being a Black auntie, she was like, you probably didn't get, or Jada probably didn't ask you a question because she jealous. I said,
yeah, they want, girl, she's because you're jealous of your skin, your hair, you do whatever. You went to Howard, like, okay, family. Oh, they supposed to say stuff like that.
Yeah. Sandra, and then my uncle, he was in the text group too, and he was like, calling her by her first name. I don't know if she want me to use her first name. I'm gonna call her Cindy. Did I already say her name? I may have already said her name.
No, you did. I didn't hear it. Yeah.
She was like, my uncle was like, or Cindy, not Cindy. Jada don't give two rats behind about. So the conversation afterwards, it was good, but no nobody love you like a Black auntie. Yeah,
100%, because she want to protect her feelings. And okay, so did you get to, or did Jada address the wall of single women, or Grammy, or Willow? Like, did they speak to you guys, or no? It was just the producers.
No, so like during the show, like she would talk to the wall, or she would even say, we're gonna go to the wall right now, or let's. And so let me be clear. I believe the intention was there, but something would happen in the conversation where it would shift, and you may stay on a point for 25 minutes, and you would forget, in a sense, to come back to the wall, or it made sense to give that person space to talk about whatever they're. So it was a couple of times when she would look. Like, okay, so how many of you guys agree with this? Okay, what other questions do you have? And the producers may go to somebody else and not necessarily go to me, right? And again, let's be clear. I understand the dynamics. I think especially in Hollywood, they want the hottest person, or not hottest physically, but they have a huge following. That's more followers to her show, except my auntie, who says she ain't gonna watch no more. So
right. Oh, auntie, yes you are. Because some of the women on the panel, so like I think her name is Deep T, she was on Love is Blind, and her storyline was huge, and the way that she did walk away from this man who wasn't into her, and obviously they had great questions, and they wanted the conversations to go that way and stuff. So okay. So before I get to what you took away from the conversation, did we miss anything about your experience? Was there anything else you wanted to say about your experience of being invited on the panel and then not getting your shining moment because Jada was jealous?
I know. I'm gonna say, like, I'm glad I had the experience. Like, I think you learn from everything. I'm just glad that I can say on my resume I was on the Red Table Talk.
Because you were physically there for sure. So okay, so let's get to the conversation of the men. So again, it was Devon Franklin, Matthew Hussey, oh gosh, I'm gonna forget. I keep Lewis, whatever. I just gonna say the white boy again.
Reka.
Right. Well, I don't know why it's Lewis Howell or something like something. Yeah.
Yes, Howell.
And
HOWES or something. Anyway,
and Stephan Speaks. I've heard all of them speak before. But like anything, hearing things over and over again is a good thing. So I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point, and I gleaned from it even more, and it's coming right on time with where I am in my life right now. So what were your thoughts? What did you learn from it? What did you like that they said? And if there was anything you didn't like and you disagreed with?
I can't remember if they showed a lot of Willow's perspective, but I honestly agreed with a lot of what she was pushing back on some of the ideas that were presented And that didn't necessarily make it to the cutting room floor. It was a pretty long conversation around this idea of masculine energy and feminine energy. And they did touch on it in what was aired and what was showed. And I think Matthew Hussey summed up, at least my perspective, and I think summed up why Willow was pushing back on it a little bit. But it's this idea that we attempt to put people in roles in terms of how they are supposed to perform and how they're supposed to show up. And his response was that those roles get boring. And there were other people's responses, even on the wall, that isn't real life. Like showing up in your, whatever that means, showing up in your masculine or feminine energy, like that's not real life. It's about, so I think Willow did say this, it's about, she said, and she quoted her parents, like, you guys told me to be like a tree blowing in the wind, being like flexible and being able to kind of go with the flow. And I loved that because we very much get caught up when we hear these terms, masculine energy and feminine energy, which I think is just rehashing of traditional roles. And we try to be something, we try to perform and do something to get something, but that's not who we are. And we get so caught up in being these things that we have a different person showing up in the relationship because you're trying to be somebody else's definition of feminine versus just being yourself.
Just being you. Yes, yes. And I know exactly the moment you're talking about because I thought that was a great example that Matthew Hussey brought up. And I am sad that I feel like on all the Red Table Talks, especially now hearing what you just said, I guess my intuition was right, that they do cut a lot of what Willow has to say. So all of hers is like, ooh, that's so good. Ooh, and that's it. And it's like, well, what? I like to hear from Willow because she is part of the younger generation coming from behind us, whether people think she's weird or not, whatever. I do think she has valid points to make. And I did appreciate Matthew Hussey saying you show up as this one-dimensional woman in her femininity. It gets boring. So he used the example of, like he said, he had a client that was all she did was show her sexy side. Everything was I'm sexy, I'm sexy, I'm sexy, because that's how you know to bring men and to get their attention. And then it ended up not working out. And then you're like, well, why do people only approach me and all they're saying is I'm sexy, I'm sexy? Because that's the only thing you're presenting, because you think that this is what femininity is. And so that's how you're supposed to attract men, right? And we don't realize that CAMEO needs to show up as CAMEO, period. Reka needs to show up as Reka, period. It's not like, okay, so what's feminine about me? Let me, he's supposed to only take out the trash and we got to be this on the bills and we got to da-da-da. We're so rigid because we're looking for a black and white answer when relationships are gray. That's gray, and everybody's gray is a different gray.
It is, and at different points in our lives, right? So I'm going to be a different gray at 30 than I will be at 40. My needs are going to be different. If I have children, my body is going to change. Our collective unit, we're going to have different needs. So this idea that you have to be whatever feminine, I want to know where that came from, right? And I'm sure it has. I'm sure if we actually read something versus just like repeating folks, it probably has a better definition, a more holistic perspective on what feminine and masculine energy really means and how it is how we're supposed to understand it. But I do not think it is helpful in how it is being delivered in a lot of our conversations around relationships.
Absolutely. Do this and you will get this. It's not, no, it's no. you may not, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I do want to ask you here in a minute. So I have kind of two questions that are rolling around in my head. So I want to get to what question did you want to ask them that you didn't get to? But before I ask that question, I did write down this quote that I think Matthew Hussey gave because they were talking about compromise, right? What's the difference between settling? Aren't you supposed to compromise in relationships? Which is a conversation we just had on my podcast, right? And I'm like, exactly, like this is right on time because I feel like in this moment of my life, I'm trying to figure out what that means for me. And I love this quote. If you are giving up something that is going to take away your ability to pour into your partner, don't do it. So that would be the compromise that is not healthy, because if I am not getting this thing that I need from you and I say, oh, okay, well, I think Matthew Hussey used this example, or maybe it was Stephan Speaks. You want to go out, you love going out dancing, but he doesn't like to. So you compromise and you don't do it. But then you're not happy. So then resentment sets in and you're like, I did this for you and you're not giving me this thing that I need. So then therefore you cannot pour into your partner in what the Bible would say, outdoing each other with love, because now you're mad.
Mm-hmm.
And resentment on the inside is termites and it spews out, and now you acting weird. This is definitely true for me. If I am not getting what I need in a relationship, I be acting so weird because I have all these emotions that I feel like I need to tell you, but I feel like I can't tell you because it's not a safe space to land, and you're going to walk away and then my abandonment issues come up.
That's literally it. That is the layout. Yep, that is exactly what's going to happen. That is it. Because I've been there.
Yep.
I've been there. I've been there. I love that. I actually wrote that down, like that.
Yep. So good, ain't it?
It was, and how they explained it, and also how they touched on resentment, but just the difference, especially for women. If this is a show that's primarily watched by women, this idea of sacrifice like really needs to be talked about, and how it does not listen, and how it doesn't benefit you. And you think you're doing it for the sake of the marriage, or you think you're doing it for the sake of your spouse, but it is really problematic because you are a part of this marriage. And if you aren't getting fulfilled, then the marriage will crumble. The connection will cease. And I just really love how it was defined and the examples that they gave.
Okay. So then what question did you want to ask them that you didn't get to? And maybe there were a few.
I have 50 million questions, right? So, but one of the questions, and so they asked what was kind of like your burning dating question. So it was from that perspective. And so I had two. One of them is like how I encounter men. And so men, typically when I'm dating, when I do get connected to a man, it's one of two things. Like you get really excited in the beginning and you're like, let's do this. Let's do this thing called life, right? I don't know if it's as far as like I want to marry you, but I feel that intention. And so it's very intense in the beginning, but then 3 months down the line, or it's like, where are you? What are we doing?
What happened? What happened?
Yes.
We were so like on this path. Now what happened, girl? We were right here, Cameo.
Like what happened to you? And so I get that type of man. So I'm like, what is that? What's happening? Right. And I've been intentional about ensuring that it isn't sexual energy or sexual, like, yes, I'm attracted to you. And yes, you are attracted to me, but let's pump the brakes. Like, don't touch me. Like, let's really get to know each other. So what is that? What's happening there? So that was one question, right? Because that is typically my dating experience. And so especially now I'm very intentional about slowing it down. Make sure you really like me and you're not infatuated by me. And then the other question was...
Yeah, before you even say your other question, I feel like I need to say this because it's piggybacking off of the quote that we both wrote down, right? If it's causing you to be basically, well, hold on, what was the quote? It was, if you are giving up something that is going to take away your ability to pour into your partner, don't do it, right? So I know for a fact now at this big age, pushing up on 40, what I need. And I remember Gammy saying, imagine how much time that takes, right? So it is being in this, exactly. It is being in this space of how much time, and it's still a question mark for me, how much time do I allow that to develop for us to have that hard conversation of, I am not receiving what I need from you. Okay. And now my abandonment wound is being triggered. And the alarm bells are going off like, nigga, you wait and you wasted my time. I don't want to be that version anymore. I want to be the one that can push through and have the tough conversation. I am not getting this from you. And see if the other quote. So here's the other quote I wrote down. If the relationship gets better after a conversation, then keep going. If it doesn't, that is the red flag. So can I have a conversation? Can I be big girl enough, pull up my big girl underwear in all the pain and vulnerability that it causes to say, you are not giving me what I need. And now I am hiding and shutting down. So I need this from you if we are going to intentionally be in this relationship. Can I first woman up and do that? And then second, he go, okay. And the relationship goes from there, right? So it's like, how much time do you allow that? When, because I think one of my greatest fears, and obviously I want to hear how you feel about this. One of my greatest fears is picking wrong yet again.
That's such a good portion of that conversation, because just as much as it hits home for you, it hits home for me. One of my first relationships, it was an emotionally abusive relationship, right? A lot of gaslighting. And this is before the terms came out, before we were heavily talking about mental health awareness. Because I know he was depressed. In hindsight, I know he was. But there were also some other issues happening there. Gaslighting. He was insecure. Just all these things. And one thing that did for me is I think it deepened the wound of being able to, or not feeling comfortable enough to articulate your needs and have those needs being met. Right. Yep. And so I try to be, you talk about woman up, you talk about being vulnerable. I try to be as intentional as possible, especially in the beginning, about what I like and what I don't like, because it puts me in the practice of articulating my needs and my desires in the beginning. Right. And so I don't want to say I can be harsh, but I try to, I don't like this, and just be clear, because we're not going to deal with fear 6 months down the line. And I'm super attached to you and I'm deeply in love with you. And at the same time, I don't know how to tell you, I need you to be more supportive when I have events, and be scared to say that, because I'm afraid that you're gonna be like, well, that ain't got nothing to do with me.
Right. I don't have time for it or whatever. And it causes this confrontation that we don't want. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Because I don't think confrontation is bad. And I think that's what Gail was getting at. No. I think it's when you are with the right person, the confrontation leads to a solution. And there's a listening part, but there's also a vulnerability component to it as well.
Yep. Ooh, I love you, Kevin. I love you so much. I just want to, oh my God, this is why we friends. Anyway.
It's so good. So something else that was shared, I think, behind the scenes, and I thought it was very eye-opening to me. And it was in the middle of the conversation about and I know I'm kind of harping on this, but on the masculine feminine energy piece, and about, there's always going to be masculine energy, there's always going to be feminine energy, and you basically need to decide which role you're going to be in and acquiesce to the other one. And so it was a lot of pushback in that space, and I appreciated it. But someone said, essentially, two people can love each other deeply and have no ill intent for each other, but can do harm to the person that they love. And that idea gives so much power to us as mere humans to treat someone we love deeply and to treat them simply horribly. And they were speaking from experience. And I love that, because it talked about humanity. I would never conceptualize that someone that I love deeply and someone that loves me deeply, that I would hurt them and just make a horrible decision and it would hurt them. So like, that was not a concept in my mind. And I said, I said, well, damn, like I really did. And I think it happens more often than we know. And these people stay in these relationships and they work through that deep hurt that no, but you love me. And they didn't mean to, but it happened. It happened. And so I thought that was extremely refreshing, and something I just never heard someone say or admit out loud, that we have the capacity, we can and we do, to hurt someone, just make bad decisions, horrible decisions, and cause deep pain to the person we say we love the most.
Yeah. Just why this is hard. Oh my God. This is hard. This is hard when you want to be in a relationship, when you want to be married. It's like, who, and I've heard this quote before too, like everybody comes with their own stuff. You're always going to have these moments in relationships that can make or break you. So it's like, who is it worth going through that with?
Yeah.
How do you know? You know?
Yeah.
So this is so good. Okay. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else we need to touch on from this conversation on Red Table Talk? Well, my girl Cameo was with Jada.
No, I think it was good. Hopefully, they'll ask me back on for something else. I don't know. Who knows? Right. And I won't be a wall woman. Maybe I'll be a full guest.
Yes.
Sitting at their table. But no, I think it was a great conversation. I hope they do a part 2.
Right.
And that they
need to. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just really, go deep and really unpacking. And something I've said time and time again, I think a lot of people get on Will and Jada and their relationship, but I don't think they realize really what they're doing. I don't know Will. I don't know Jada. I don't know anything about their family other than what we've seen. But what I feel like is happening is they are sharing parts of their lives with the intent to heal other people. And some of us just go completely in disregard. Like, they don't have to be vulnerable. They don't have to share anything. But if you sit back and you listen and you really take in, you can learn so much from them deciding to air their dirty laundry. They don't have to do it. And so absolutely. I'm appreciative.
Yeah. And I like learning from other people instead of going through it myself. Like, I think I used to be somebody who had to touch the hot stove to see if it was actually hot after somebody told me it was. But I am now becoming the person who's like, okay, I believe you. And it's when people show you who they are, believe them, right? And I'm leaning more into that and learning what that actually means and what Maya Angelou was trying to teach us in that moment. And so I thoroughly enjoy, especially after reading his book and feeling like I have more of an inside of what Jada and Will wanted to accomplish within their marriage, and now teaching us that. So I love it. Yep.
Well, Reka, I thank you for interviewing me.
Yes. On your own podcast.
Yep. I know. In my experience through the Red Table Talk. And if you haven't already, please make sure you are following us on Instagram. We're on TikTok as well, and we're on Facebook, so you can keep up with the latest info and some events that we're doing. And again, Reka, I thank you so much for being on the Good Girl Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
All right. This is the Good Girl Podcast.